Hey there, and welcome to today's daily premium newsletter for March 21st. So the market is nearly neutral for the day. A small rally followed by a sharp loss puts us at 345 billion, which is still up from the 275 billion low we saw on Sunday. One of the biggest pieces of news percolating through the crypto community has been the issue discovered with the Ledger Nano S and Ledger Blue. A 15-year-old hacker was able to backdoor the hardware wallet, which until now has been seen as the most secure method for storing cryptocurrency. His 300 bytes of malicious code caused the device to generate predetermined wallet addresses and recovery passwords known to the attacker. They could enter them into a new ledger and recover the private keys of the compromised device. Using the same address, the hacker could change the wallet destinations and transaction amounts. So the $50 you're sending to a friend is suddenly $5,000 being sent to the hacker's address. Ledger has recently released a firmware update for the devices that was meant to serve as a deep dive and fix into 3 known vulnerabilities. We recommend anyone with these devices update to the latest firmware. Unfortunately, according to the hacker and Johns Hopkins researchers, the backdoor vulnerability was not fixed with this most recent update, as it is a fundamental design flaw. The Ledger Blue and Nano S rely on a secure microcontroller to provide the cryptographic attestation that the device is running authorized firmware. Because the microcontroller doesn't support displays, USB connections, or communications, the Ledger engineers added a second general-purpose microcontroller to serve as a proxy. In a nutshell, the hacker's exploit works by replacing the genuine firmware with unauthorized code, while at the same time causing the one microchip to send the other the official firmware image. This exploit is eerily similar to the recently discovered exploits of CPU architecture of Spectre, and more specifically Meltdown. As Ledger Nano S owners, we're certainly concerned by this news, but at the same time, we do not feel threatened. For one, this attack is only possible if the hacker has physical access to your hardware wallet. Second, so long as you bought the device directly from the company or from a reputable reseller, there should be no concern that malicious code was installed on the device prior to your acquiring of it. Last, so long as you've never installed any unsigned apps onto the device via a command line, there'll be little to worry about. Also, if you have the older model, the Nano, there's nothing to worry about as it has a different architecture. We look forward to hearing more from the Ledger team as they continue to look to quell the concerns people have. And so with that, over to Doc. Have a great day.
Good evening, this is Doc for ReadySetCrypto. We have about an hour left of trading in this particular crypto day before UTC goes to 1200. And as you can see, we have a fairly flat market across the board. Really not much is going on. We've had a nice little bounce lately over the last 3 days, but this is not a true reversal just yet, okay? Because of the reason that we still have a downtrend. We still have a downtrend, just like we had a downtrend here with lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. This is still a lower high and equal high, and then we dipped back down into the downtrend again. So this is a swing up. This is not an uptrend, though. Now, if I actually go down to the 60-minute chart, or even smaller than that, but 60-minute chart will probably do, then we can see that, yes, this is an uptrend. This is an uptrend after a series of flags and a downtrend. Here's a flag, downtrend, reversal, breakout, and now we have an uptrend on the 60-minute chart. So that's still good, but what we have to do, though, is reversals start from the inside out. They have to propagate to the larger time frames first before anything really gets going. That may not make a lot of sense until you actually go through a reversal, but what that means is that we're going to have a combination of either the price printing a higher low and then a subsequent higher high to change that downtrend into an uptrend again, or perhaps what we'll see is the price simply reaching up to make a new higher high, right? So that would occur like this. We'll break up to make a higher high, higher low, and then break out from there. Either way, we've got to get above and beyond that descending trend line, which has been trapping the price for the past 3 months. Now, I've got a couple of things to go over today, and some of them are a continuation of what we talked about with the different exchanges and the fact that we're looking at things like, okay, what's Bitfinex versus Coinbase versus Bitstamp, and finding the right exchange to chart these off of. So Bitfinex is one that we looked at recently saying, wow, there's a lot more volume at Bitfinex. Maybe we should be charting based on Bitfinex. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Now, What I want to show you, kind of the thrust of what I want to talk about here, is these two moving averages here. These are simple moving averages. The green one is the 200-day simple. The red one is the 50-day simple. This is a old, very simple system that's been in place for a long time. So I'm going to clean up this chart by removing some of the other indicators that we have here. So let's delete the good old chop index. And we don't particularly need the Bollinger Bands right now. So I'm going to click on here and remove these. And now we're down to a fairly simple price chart with some trend lines, some volume. And what I want to show you here is how we can use these lines. Now we're just about to get what's called a death cross. When a death cross occurs, when the faster moving average, in this case the 50-day, which is the red one, crosses underneath the 200, which is the longer term trend. And that may or may not be a bad signal going forward. So let's see how Bitcoin has dealt with this in the past. So we're just going to kind of move this thing along. And we're going to look for the last cross that we've had on Bitfinex. Okay. Now look for the last cross that we've had on Bitfinex. So you can see that we've had basically a condition of a golden cross for a long time here. For a long time here, even going back to 2016, and it looks like in the latter part of 2015 is when we actually got that golden cross to show up. Okay, so we had a little bit of flat price action, and this is specifically what you're going to see when you have sideways price action. Is you're going to see moving averages tangling with each other, and this is where it throws off an awful lot of false signals. Okay, so we're back here in 2015. Now we get into 2014, and here's a definite death cross at this point. Definite death cross to the downside. Notice that these are very tricky because that is a golden cross to begin with, then a death cross. Here's another death cross, all right? So you can see the big volatility makes moving average systems go crazy. And now we get back to pretty much the end of 2013, and all of a sudden, what happens here? We run out of data. We run out of data. Now, why is that? Well, that's because Bitfinex started trading Bitcoin right around this time. And you can see that this was pretty much the end of March in 2013. So Bitfinex has been trading Bitcoin for about 5 years now. Now that's interesting because we can go to different versions of Bitcoin. We can go to the version of Bitcoin that is through Coinbase, and we can do the same thing here. And we're going to go back to Coinbase and see how far back this one goes. Okay. And you can see that this one pretty much starts around the beginning of 2015. So Coinbase, even though Coinbase has got tremendous volume, doesn't have as much history as even Bitfinex. And so perhaps this is why we had Bitstamp as our default from TradingView, because we can go back on Bitstamp and we can go back a long way. We can go back a long way on Bitstamp. And so we can see really how the price of Bitcoin has responded to all these death crosses and golden cross. So a golden cross, again, is where you have the smaller time frame chart cross above the bigger time frame chart. That's a golden cross. And a death cross is when you have the smaller time frame, in this case the red one, cross underneath the green one. So we're going way back here, back into $7 Bitcoin and $5 Bitcoin. So Bitstamp is going to be our best choice, not in terms of today's volume, but if we want to go back in time a long way. And so now you can start to see this is where we get kind of garbagey data, and we've lost our 200-day moving average because it doesn't go back 200 days, right? So this is where we started to have an exchange actually carry the data, right? So actually carry the volume on here, and you can see the volume is actually fairly strong. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way. So there are going to be different exchanges that you're going to look at Bitcoin for different things. If we want to look at today's volume, probably we want to look at Bitfinex. If we want to go back in time and see how Bitcoin operated during some of the previous bear markets, then we might want to look at Bitstamp. Okay, so here we go. Here's Golden Cross. Here's one of the strongest rallies that we had. This was in the latter part of 2013. And then from the parabolic top comes the hairy back, the nasty stuff. And this is where we had the initial death cross, Golden Cross, fake out, death cross again, and that was a nasty, nasty bear that we had. Perhaps some capitulation there. Finally, here's where the bottom hit, and this is where it took off. This is the disbelief rally that finally came from here, and this was in the latter part of 2015, believe it or not. So you can see that nobody was on board this rally when it took off, and all of a sudden people said, hey, wait a minute. And this is what happens to every rally, is that all of a sudden it catches attention from people, shakes off the pikers, and then off it goes again. So there's our Golden Cross. And that may be the last Golden Cross that we had, was back at the latter part of 2015. Okay, so I think we've been under that spell for a long, long time. Okay, so just going forward here, and yes, that is true. So look what we have right now. If we zoom in on this, we can see this a little bit better. That's not a death cross yet, but it's getting awfully close to it. So watch for what happens when we do death cross. Will that lead to yet another sell signal coming into play? And this is just part of the process, guys. It's just part of the process. It's necessary to get people to give up. Now, I had somebody ask me today, do you really mean by the very last person giving up? No, that's a figure of speech. Pretty much what we have to do is we have to get the herd convinced that there is no future in Bitcoin anymore. And they're awfully close to it right now, awfully close with all the negative news articles that are out there. Most people that have very little experience with crypto have folded their tent and they've gone back to mutual funds or whatever they're doing right now. So in the meantime, we'll see what happens with the G20 this week. We'll cross our fingers and see if we can get some positive vibe coming from that. If not, though, price is always king, and we will watch for the price to start making higher highs and higher lows and start breaking trend lines and start increasing in volume as a way to positively endorse the new rally coming forth like a phoenix from the ashes. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.